Thanks, Mutu. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to Building an IoT Solution with Grey Matter piece. So, quick look at the agenda. First, I'd just like to let you know a bit about Grey Matter, our approach to IoT, and then a few acronyms: BMW, ADS, POC, and Q&A. So let's start with the piece about Grey Matter. So we have been around for some 38 years, established back in 1983 by a couple of developers. We are a Microsoft Gold partner, and we have two dedicated teams which are particularly relevant to tonight's session. We have a mapping and location services team. I head up that team, and we have a software and technical services team as well. And Mark Trippier is the technical business consultant within that team. We've had from day one a real focus on developers and independent software vendors. And since our small beginnings back in 1983, we now are a global company with offices in the UK, Europe, and North America. So let's start off with some stats. According to a study by the networking giant Cisco, 60% of IoT projects stall at the POC stage. That is quite a statistic. So first of all, I'm just going to ask Mark, how does Grey Matter work with customers to ensure that they get to at least the POC concept, but a POC stage, but if not beyond?
To be honest, our customers are the ones that have the great solutions. We're there to help them deliver and run them in Azure. We've got a unique relationship with Microsoft due to our mapping and IoT experience, and this gives us direct access to some of the best resource and support available for your projects. IoT is really a balance. It's a balance between business goals, design and development, and infrastructure. And Grey Matter help in this area by providing project management, infrastructure knowledge, and access to expert advice and potentially POC funding, POC being proof of concept. We achieve this by using techniques like the BMW, the Business Modeling Workshop, the ADS, our architectural design service, and multiple hands-on workshops that are designed to help you reach proof of concept in a measured and manageable timeframe.
Brilliant, thanks Mark. So let's take a closer look at the first of those acronyms, the BMW. So can you tell us what that involves, please, Mark?
The BMW is really the first stage in our process. It's aimed at understanding the business benefits, the value proposition, the vision statement, and the go-to-market. It really makes sure that the business is aligned with the technical design and technical requirements of the dev department and the IoT plans, so that both sides are joined up and the stakeholders are actually getting what they envisage from the start. So Azure IoT offers the opportunity to yield new revenue sources, reach new markets, attach services to products, and dramatically reduce manufacturing and operational costs. The IoT Discovery Workshop is a consulting exercise designed to fully inform senior stakeholders of what is possible using the Azure IoT suite of products, the trends that are driving it, typical scenarios, and the business value they deliver. The workshop content is discussed in the context of the vertical in which that organisation operates, and the workshop concludes with a business modelling exercise to identify how Azure IoT might generate business and operational value in the customer organisation. We examine the capabilities, the channels and partnerships that will be required to realise that value and ultimately to bring it to market. It's usually attended by C-level employees, so divisional directors, CIOs, CTOs, COOs, etc. The outcomes of it is at the end of that workshop, we should have a solid understanding of the business value and what the project and Azure can deliver amongst senior leadership. We should have an appreciation of the transformative nature of connected assets and products and the insights that they can create. We should have a business level understanding of the capabilities required to drive Azure projects. A high level business model canvas describing business, infrastructure and customer facing solutions. That will lead us into the next stage where we can aim at getting to the proof of value and production. The next step is the business benefits and value proposition defined by this business modeling workshop will then lead us into an architectural design service where we can discover where technologies are best suited to deliver these business needs.
So I'm assuming that the architectural design service is a key point in the whole process then?
The architectural design service is where we actually get down to the nitty-gritty of how your code can work in Azure and which functions and features are best suited to your requirements. Essentially, it's a 1 to X day sessions with an IoT architect. It can lead to design and definition to include architectural diagrams and specification reports. We're hoping to achieve review and understand the value proposition to start with, just recounting back to the business benefits so that obviously the developers understand exactly what's trying to be achieved. We need to understand the solution benefits, review the volumetrics and data flow, understand use scenarios, look at personas, so who'll be using which element and what their requirements are from the data. For example, hot, warm and cold storage using the Lambda architecture. So typically hot would be your most recent data, so probably used for alerts and dashboards. Your warm, perhaps the last 30 days that you would be providing for reporting, data analysis, etc. And then obviously the cheaper form of storage, so your cold storage, where you'd keep your full historic data set, which is ideally used by data scientists, AI, ML, etc. We then review the high level requirements, understand any current architecture or functionality, and review where this current design can map onto Azure functions and functionality, and see where perhaps some options are better to go code less rather than actually develop more code to make it work and actually use some of the features available. Finally, we understand exactly what your team's capabilities are so that we can work out the right solution for you. So the outcomes of the ADS would be a clear understanding of the solution and its offering, an understanding of where Azure can help deliver this solution, an understanding of where development time can be reduced by leveraging Azure functionality, a considered approach to the roadmap, potentially some conceptual diagrams for different architectural approaches that leverage the 5 pillars of Azure architecture, so namely cost optimization, operational excellence, performance efficiency, reliability and security, and then generate a phased plan from concept, proof of concept, from your concept to proof of concept to minimal viable product to an anticipated release.
Perfect, thank you. And so moving on to the proof of concept part, then where do you see the benefit in the POC?
The POC is really there to confirm the architecture and technologies and ensure that they actually will deliver the business requirements. Ideally, you want to deliver that in a cost-effective manner, which will minimize the code development time and create low impact to the business. This proves the concept at a basic level in the real world prior to larger investment, development and infrastructure. Where applicable, grey matter can potentially help you secure Microsoft assistance and funding for this POC, and it's a great starter to 10 to lead you into your MVP, which is your minimal viable product.
Great. So we've spoken about the BMW, the ADS, the POC. How long does the whole process typically take with an IoT project?
It's very varied for all projects, as you can imagine, because they're all very different and require different technologies and skills. But I guess as a project, the quickest way to market is to leverage something like IoT Central, where you could potentially have an application up and running in less than a day. If you needed a bit more control over what you're doing with your data, then you'd use potentially IoT Hub for ingesting your data. And again, there's a bit more development and coding needed around that, so it would take a little bit longer. But traditionally, we kind of look at a POC in a few weeks. An MVP might take a few months. And then if you're looking at full product, again, depending on the scope of exactly what needs to be achieved, that could be 6 months or more.
Okay, so kind of how long's a piece of string, I guess, but yeah, thanks for that answer. So we've just got a slide here with some resources on there. So you mentioned the 5 pillars of the well-architected framework earlier. So why is that so important?
I guess there's some things that it's very difficult to do in the old-fashioned tin environment, that leveraging PaaS solutions, you can obviously maximize your scalability, certainly, but you want to do it in a way where you're not paying for resources that are sitting there not being used. So from a cost point of view, you want to make it as efficient as possible, ideally only paying for what you use. So probably looking at a compute type approach, and a lot of the functionality in IoT is designed to help you with that. From an operational excellence point of view, microarchitecture and modern architecture is definitely the way forwards with leveraging some of the solutions available in the cloud. So it's definitely an area that should be reviewed and leveraged wherever possible, really, to get the best out of your applications. Obviously, performance efficiency speaks for itself, but you need it to be able to scale in both directions. So depending on what metrics you put in place for why it would scale out, you want it to scale out under load so that you can service more customers or more data faster. And you want to obviously scale it in when it's not under load, because you don't want to be paying for that compute power. Reliability, obviously you want to maximize the SLAs that are offered by Microsoft. So depending on how you architect it, that ranges from 3 nines to 5 nines. And obviously these SLAs can be passed on directly to your customer. And there's also considerations regarding high availability, backup and disaster recovery that should be considered, because obviously you want to keep your application up and running at all times. And then security speaks for itself. From a security point of view, there's obviously the basic sides of it, where you're looking at the infrastructure, making sure that ports aren't open that they shouldn't be, making sure that you haven't provided access to, or over provided access to, users that don't need it, right the way through to actually securing your applications and data storage and consumption using supplied frameworks for security, because Microsoft actually offers, currently on their website, 99 compliances, but to name a couple, you've got SOX 1, 2 and 3, ISO 27001, FCA and HIPAA. So there's every opportunity to make sure, if it's architected correctly, that they meet these standards.
Thanks, Mark. As you'd expect, Microsoft are really good at documenting all of this, and I have just popped those 2 links there on the slide into the chat if anybody wants to take a look at those. So yeah, finally, just a thank you from us. Please contact us if you've got any questions or you want to discuss a project or a use case. The email is info@greymatter.com, and yeah, we'll move on to the Q&A session now. Thank you, everyone.